Blackhawks first-round pick Anton Frondell has returned to Sweden for this season. I'll break down my expectations, Frondell's projected role, and what he needs to work on in the SHL.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Blackhawks fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jack Bushman. You can go and check me out on X at Jack Bushman 2, but make sure to follow my strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey, so that way you don't miss out on any of the latest Blackhawks news and updates. And I also got to give a quick shout out here to today's sponsor, which is Monarch Money. Go and take control of your finances right now by using our promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps at monarchmoney.com. And you'll also get 50% off on your first year. All right, Blackhawks fans, on today's show, I'll be starting things off with a new prospect preview series that I want to debut since I recently wrapped up my updated Blackhawks Summer 2025 top prospects list, which make sure to go and check out if you haven't done so already. But I felt like this was a good and natural way to kind of follow up on that and transition into something on the same kind of topic since, there isn't a ton of hockey news or Blackhawks updates at this point in the summer. And one thing I normally do leading into the start of the NHL regular season is my season previews, which will be returning again in mid to late September throughout early October up until the start of the regular season for players like Connor Bedard, Frank Nazar, Sam Rinzel, Alex Vlasic, Artem Levshinov, Oliver Moore. Those will be returning once again, but I also wanted to kind of do the same thing and go through player previews for some of the top prospects in the organization as well. Guys who are going to be playing meaningful roles for, some of the top college teams in the country or high-level junior programs or whatever it may be. I just kind of wanted to go through a preview of each of their seasons as well and talk about my expectations, what role I expect them to have, and just kind of everything that they need to work on before making that next step in their development. And kicking things off, getting the honors of going first here today in my prospect preview series, I figured it was only right to begin with the third overall pick in the 2025 NHL draft in Anton Frondell, who we obviously know will be returning to Sweden to play with Djurgardens in the SHL this year, despite signing his entry-level contract recently with the Blackhawks. And in the couple of weeks prior to or following him getting drafted, there were some rumblings that, maybe Frondell goes immediately to the NHL, but actually there has been a plan for Frondell to go back to Sweden for a long time, even prior to the Blackhawks selecting him third overall, and even before Djurgardens knew they were getting promoted to the SHL for the 25-26 season, as in a recent article from Scott Powers of The Athletic, who I regularly shout out and go through his work here on the show. He had a phone interview recently with the general manager of Djurgardens about what to expect for Anton Frondell this season. And the general manager said that it's been in the works since last October or November. They sat down with Frondell, sat down with his father, and kind of discussed the best path for him moving forward and what are going to be a couple crucial years of his development. And again, it's been in the plans for a while for him to return to Sweden, which, by the way, the SHL regular season is just about a month away from getting underway, and training camp has already begun. And because Frondell is going to be remaining in Sweden this season, that means we won't be seeing him playing in training camp with the Blackhawks. But as far as what we can expect for Frondell in the SHL this season, first, I think it's important to go and look at the kind of season that he put together last year for Djurgardens when they were in the Hockey Allsvenskan League. Frondell, by the way, just turned 18 years old back in May, so a fresh 18-year-old, now listed at 6'1", right around 205 pounds, and in 29 games for Djurgardens in the Hockey Allsvenskan League last year, we saw Frondell finish the season on a real high note, accumulating 25 points, 11 goals, and 14 assists, finishing the season on a much higher note than he started, and he also chipped in for 7 points, 3 goals and 4 assists in 16 postseason games to help Djurgardens win the Hockey Allsvenskan League title. So a good season for Frondell, one of the best draft year seasons out of any player in the Hockey Allsvenskan League. But of course, it's going to be a step up in competition this year, as the SHL not only is the top professional league over in Sweden, but known as one of the best, if not the best, professional league outside of the NHL in the entire world. So going to be hard for Frondell to replicate that same points per game margin that he had in the second tier pro league last year. But in terms of what kind of role we can expect to see Anton Frondell get for Djurgardens, really do expect him to play either inside the top 6, and if not on the first or second line, he's undoubtedly going to be somewhere inside their top 9. And we got some confirmation on this from Djurgardens general manager. I apologize for forgetting his name off of the top of my head, but in that interview that I referenced a moment ago that he did recently with Scott Powers, saying that, quote, "We're not going to play a guy like Anton Frondell in a 4th line role. We're going to place him in creative spots where he should be," close quote. So again, no reason not to think that Anton Frondell isn't going to be playing meaningful second to third line minutes, if I had to guess, right here, right now. And I do think he's deserving of that opportunity, considering, again, how promising he finished last year and how much more of a consistent producer he was down the stretch of the regular season. So second, third line is probably where I'm guessing Anton Frondell to begin the season. As far as what I really would like to see him work on here with Djurgardens this year, obviously it's going to be a really good experience for him in the SHL, playing once again against grown men already at a young age, but now obviously at a little bit of a higher level than next season. And as a kid who just turned 18 years old, this is such a great opportunity for Frondell to, again, get more accustomed with playing against grown men before making that transition to North America. So continuing to just get that experience and that understanding of how you have to play to have success at that high of a level, that's the biggest thing that I think us fans and the Blackhawks organization are looking for Anton Frondell to go and do here this season, for lack of a better term. In general, though, in terms of like what skills I want to see Frondell work on here this season, I think undoubtedly the 2 biggest ones are his playmaking and his speed. If he can continue to get faster as a player who's 6'1", 205 pounds, knows how to use his size to his advantage already, if he can continue to add to his speed and work on his acceleration in that first step, that will help him in a league like the NHL, where players are just faster than ever and you got to make those split-second decisions, right? That's really what I'm looking for Anton Frondell to work on, along with the playmaking abilities. The goal scoring, he has a booming shot. I really do think he's going to be a special goal scorer, both at 5-on-5 and on the power play. But some of the concerns I've had with Frondell is about his playmaking ability. And I don't think it's like a weakness of his or anything, but I really do believe there's still another level for him to get to be like a consistent, 40, 50 assist guy in the NHL. And that's obviously what the Blackhawks are hoping he can be, some type of 30, 40 point per game type of player who can also provide some a well-rounded game and can make an impact on the defensive side of things. And that's something that I think Frondell needs to work on this season too. Again, it's not a weakness of his, but it's another opportunity to continue to make strides on his defensive play and his abilities along the boards. And again, just understanding how to use his frame in those situations to have success, rounding out his game a little bit more. Fine-tuning all of these things is really what Anton Frondell needs to be doing before, again, likely heading over to North America following the conclusion of his season in the SHL. So all in all, my expectations for Anton Frondell in Sweden this season, I would first and foremost like to see him get up over 210 pounds. Listed at about 205 right now. If he can be about 210, 215-ish. I think that's where the Blackhawks would really like him to be at. And we know he's a strong kid based on the rave reviews that he got from the NHL scouting combine, which we know the Blackhawks really value under general manager Kyle Davidson. We know he's already got that mold. He's a strong kid who puts in a lot of work in the weight room. If he can continue to get that to another level, add on some more strength, add on some more muscle, and continue to just be a unit out there on the ice, that would be huge and would, I think, aid in Anton Frondell's transition to the NHL, which will likely come at next season. And then altogether, in terms of his points and his production, it's a 52-game season in the SHL. I don't envision that Frondell is going to be having that same point-per-game margin that he did in the Hockey Allsvenskan League last year, and just kind of looking at some of the high first-round selections in recent years, how they've performed in the SHL after being drafted. I'd be stunned if Anton Frondell recorded more than, I don't want to sell him short or anything, but I feel like 30 points in the SHL this year would be absolutely outstanding. And my kind of expectations, I want to see Frondell record at least 20 points in those 50 games this year. And if he can get up to 25, I think anything above that would be outstanding from him, again, as an 18-year-old playing in not only the top professional league in Sweden, arguably the best league outside of the NHL in the entire world. If Frondell can fine-tune his skating abilities, his playmaking, continue to get a little bit stronger, put on some more weight, and go and pick up 20 to 25 points in the regular season with Djurgardens this season, I would be a very happy camper, and I would call it a very successful, likely final season for him over in Sweden before going on and officially joining the Blackhawks organization. Hopefully he comes over to North America with some really solid momentum, but there is my preview of Anton Frondell's 25-26 season with Djurgardens in Sweden. Coming up in just a moment here, Blackhawks fans, for segment 2, I'll dive into the biggest takeaways from the World Juniors Summer Showcase. But first, I got to talk to you all real quick about Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface, both on your laptop and on your phone. And Monarch even does the heavy lifting for you so that you can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks any longer. Go and use our promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps at monarchmoney.com, and you'll also get half off on your first year. Again, that's 50% off on your first year at monarchmoney.com when you use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps. Again, that's LOCKEDONNHL in all caps to get 50% off on your first year with Monarch Money. Before getting into segment 2, just a heads up that the next Blackhawks prospect preview that I will be dropping is on 2024 first-round pick Sasha Boisvert, who'll be heading to Boston University for his sophomore season. Be on the lookout for that episode dropping either tomorrow or on Thursday morning. In segment 2 on today's show, speaking of Sasha Boisvert, I've talked several different times here in the last month or so on the podcast about the World Junior Summer Showcase, one of the most noteworthy things, one of the only noteworthy things going on in the hockey world during the month of August. And I've brought up a couple of different times, the 3 Blackhawks prospects that took part in the WJSS. Sasha Boisvert, as I mentioned, along with Marek Vanacker for Team Canada. Well, AJ Svelisy got an opportunity to play for Team USA. Anton Frondell was invited to play for Team Sweden, but because he's already taking part in training camp for Djurgardens, the SHL regular season is just a month away, in addition to all of the travel that Frondell's been doing over these last couple of months for many different reasons, mostly because of travel, though. He elected, along with Victor Eklund, to ultimately bypass on the World Junior Summer Showcase, which, actually wrapped up not this past weekend, but 2 weekends ago, Blackhawks fans. Last week, I do want to apologize for not getting out an episode. I actually had my sister, who lives in enemy territory. Her husband is a lifelong St. Louis Blues fan. She lives in St. Louis. Had her come up to the Chicagoland area and stay with me for the majority of last week. So I was spending most of last week being a good host and enjoying the time that I don't get very often to hang out with my sister. So I do apologize for not having a show dropping last week, but at the same point in time, down to 3 episodes here because 3 episodes per week because it is the month of August and not a ton of hockey news to be breaking down here on the show. But that's why I'm getting into these prospect previews. I'll be having my season previews for, again, players like Bedard, Frank Nazar, Alex Vlasic, Sam Rinzel. Those will be starting in probably about a month in mid to late September. Anyways, though, the World Junior Summer Showcase. Haven't talked about it on the show because, like I said, spent last week hanging out with my sister, but definitely wanted to talk about the biggest takeaways that I had from the tournament as a whole, as well as how these 3 Blackhawks prospects fared in Minnesota. First and foremost, I think the biggest takeaway in general from the tournament was that Canada nor the United States, neither of them really had the best showings, while I think Finland and Sweden both left the showcase feeling pretty confident about their rosters and where they stand, as we're 4 months away from the World Juniors officially getting started. Canada and the United States, they did break into 2 rosters for a couple of their opening games. So that is something to consider here, but at the same point in time, the United States lost 4 of their 5 games. Canada lost 3 of their 5, while both Sweden and Finland won 4 of their 5 games. But breaking down the Blackhawks prospects in this tournament, I think the most noteworthy one the biggest standout of the group was definitely Sasha Boisvert. I thought he looked really sharp in the tournament. I saw multiple different articles from guys like Chris Peters and Stephen Ellis, who were covering the World Junior Summer Showcase, say that Boisvert was one of the biggest standouts in the Canadian forward group. Worked really well with Cole Rezhny, who was a first round selection in this year's draft of the Calgary Flames. Will be going to Boston University in the fall. So will be very interesting to see if he and Boisvert kind of can continue the chemistry that they established with one another here in this tournament during the fall. Should be very fun to watch. But Boisvert mostly played on the line with Rezhny and Michael Hage for a majority of the tournament, and I thought they were very effective as a trio. Boisvert had a couple of real nice primary assists, had a really nice entry pass to set up Cole Rezhny on a goal early on in the tournament. So Sasha Boisvert, I think, did a really good job of making his presence felt here at this World Junior Summer Showcase. And I have seen a projection. I forget who put it together. It might have even been Chris Peters following the conclusion of the showcase. The 4-line forward group preview for Canada that I saw did not have Sasha Boisvert in the lineup, but I'm staying firm here. I would be astonished if Sasha Boisvert, considering how strong his freshman season was last year, considering how good he looked in this showcase, which I know isn't the end-all be-all here, but did have an impressive showing, definitely is on their radar. It's going to come down to how well his season goes with Boston University, how strong of a start he gets off to. But I really do think he did everything in his power to make a strong impression here during the showcase. And I'm staying firm on my belief that I'd be stunned if Sasha Boisvert does not wind up on this team. I thought he was really solid in the showcase from what I saw and from what I read. Marek Vanacker, I mentioned also, got an opportunity to showcase his stuff for Team Canada not past week, but a couple of weeks ago. Finished the tournament really solid too. In that final game that they had against the United States, final game of the showcase was Team USA versus Team Canada, which I loved how they did that. Not a very pretty showing though from Team USA. Marek Vanacker was actually the one who opened up the scoring for Team Canada, added a primary assist on their final goal of the showcase as well. He actually looked like he was going to be scratched in this game, was going to be out of the lineup, but Canada actually had Caden Lindstrom come out. As we know, he's dealt with injuries heavily since being drafted 4th last year by the Columbus Blue Jackets. He drew out of the lineup, I think, as a precautionary measure in this game for Canada. And I know in every single game they didn't have their best on best, but for Marek Vanacker to get in that game against the United States and wind up with 2 points as a guy who I don't think necessarily has to be in a offensive minded situation to go and produce for Team Canada. He's definitely more unlikely to make it than Sasha Boisvert is. But I do think, in kind of a similar fashion to AJ Spellacy, as I'll get here in just a second, I know Vanacker isn't like a physical checking forward or anything, but he's got some good size to him, has kind of a power forward-ish kind of style. 6'1", along with some good speed and just a sound offensive makeup. I do think that will give him an opportunity because he is a little bit more unique compared to some other guys who could be in consideration. I think that'll give him an opportunity to make Canada's roster. But again, I think it's going to come down to how well his start of the season goes with the Brantford Bulldogs. But like I said, undoubtedly the more unlikely of the two between he and Sasha Boisvert in terms of making that final World Juniors team. But I thought Marek Vanacker did some good things with the opportunities that he was given during this showcase. And then last but certainly not least, AJ Spellacy, the lone Blackhawks prospect who was on Team USA's roster, didn't actually play in that final game against Canada, which was a little bit disappointing, but altogether, I thought he had a pretty decent showing. And again, just because he's someone who will provide some physicality down in a bottom 6 type of role, while also having good size and good speed, someone who could kill penalties and just provide you with a little bit of energy at the bottom of your lineup, someone who will come in and make winning types of plays out there. That's why I think AJ Spellacy could have some value for the United States at the World Juniors this winter. It's kind of been the same narrative around him, though, since being among the final cuts at last year's World Juniors. Knew that he probably wasn't going to be a part of the team as someone who was just getting drafted, right, was among the younger players in consideration and training in their camp. It's going to come down to the wire for AJ Spellacy, but again, I do think his unique characteristics give him an opportunity, and I think there's probably a greater chance, even though Marek Vanacker is undoubtedly the higher ceiling prospect and is the one who is more skilled between the two, I do believe there's a better chance that AJ Spellacy winds up making Team USA than Marek Vanacker winds up making Team Canada. But should be interesting to see all 3 of these players push for the final roster when the World Juniors roll around this winter. Will be fun keeping an eye on each of them leading up to that point in the season. But that's going to wrap up my takeaways from the World Juniors Summer Showcase. Just an opportunity for each of these countries to get some more understanding about how they want to go about their roster makeup here in just a couple of months. And I thought each of these 3 Blackhawks prospects made the most of their opportunities. Coming up in just a moment here, Blackhawks fans, before I close out today's episode, still want to share some of the coolest moments from Patrick Kane Day last Friday. Real quick, though, I do got to talk to you all first about Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone like yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Well, that's easy. Just use Indeed. Because when it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites because Indeed's sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. So skip all of those unnecessary questions and steps because now you can speed up your hiring process and you'll also get a $75 sponsored job credit along with it. All you got to do is go check out Indeed.com/lockedon right now and make sure to support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this very podcast. Again, that's Indeed.com. Use our code LOCKEDON right now in all caps, and you'll also get a $75 sponsored job credit. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed, is all you need. Back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Just wanted to say, better than that, just want to say thank you to everyone for making Locked On Blackhawks your very first listen, here to start off your day. For your second listen, make sure to go and check out the Locked On NHL podcast, where there is no offseason, bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter the most with the local coverage you love from Locked On. And you can easily find Locked On NHL now on YouTube or wherever you may be listening to your podcasts. Segment 3, Patrick Kane returned to the city of Chicago on Friday, 8/8, which has always kind of unofficially been Patrick Kane Day in the city, but now will be always recognized as such, as Kaner Day officially was put in place on Friday. And we saw Kaner go through a various tour around the city, starting off with Johnny's Ice House out there with his son, Patrick Kane III. We also saw Alex DeBrincat was out there with his son as well. One of the funniest clips I saw going around social media was of baby Kane and baby DeBrincat trying to throw some fisticuffs at Johnny's Ice House early on Friday morning. But to cap off Patrick Kane Day, Kaner went to the Chicago Sports Museum in Fulton Market. And I got to give a huge shout out to one of my most loyal listeners out there, one of my good buddies, Knuth. I don't know if you want me to use like your full name on the pod. I don't know if you'd care one way or the other. I imagine that you wouldn't, but shout out to my good buddy Knuth for always tuning into the show and for winning 2 tickets to go to this Patrick Kane autograph and Q&A session at the Chicago Sports Museum in Fulton Market on Friday night. Answered a question correctly by calling in on ESPN 1000, won 2 tickets, and I was fortunate enough to have him take me along with him. And for any of you who have been following me, listening to the show, watching the show for a long time, then you know, I mean, just look at the background on this phone. It's been the background on my phone since, I still remember, November of 2014. And I've also told the story several times on the pod before about how my childhood dog, when I was 9, I was older than that. I think I was 12. Patrick Kane, following his rookie season, I got a German Shepherd puppy. I had just really fallen in love with hockey and the Blackhawks, and all I could think of to name my dog was Kane. And that was before any of the Stanley Cups, any of the Conn Smythes, Hart trophies, Art Rosses, any of that good stuff. So to watch Patrick Kane grow into the greatest American-born player of all time, while, my dog grew up alongside me as well, the long summer runs, watching the Blackhawks in the Stanley Cup playoffs, Patrick Kane being my favorite player, it was incredible to go and shake hands with Patrick Kane, be so close to him, get an autograph from him as well, and just enjoy hearing him along with Pat Boyle, who was hosting the Q&A and the autograph session, to hear him talk through, the special memories and the special moments and the highlight reel goals that he scored. And like I said, those long Stanley Cup summer runs that they went on, it was truly one of the coolest things that I've ever gotten to do. So huge shout out to my boy, Sam Knuth. But it was just really special to not only see how important the city of Chicago still is to Patrick Kane and how much he means to us Blackhawks fans still to this very day, despite him wearing a Detroit Red Wings jersey now. I really believe he's the only person who could be wearing a Detroit Red Wings jersey in the United Center and score an overtime winner and get a standing ovation. Like, that's how much Patrick Kane means to us Blackhawks fans and how much he means to the city of Chicago. And for him to make this part of his plans on August 8th, last Friday, to go and show love to all of us fans who showed him love and still show him love to this day. It was just really special to be a part of that. And crazy to think just how fast time flies and how he's 37 years old now. And baby Kane, Patrick Kane III, is old enough to go up on stage and walk around and talk on the microphone. I thought that was super cool. Also thought it was cool to hear Kaner talk about some of the coolest off-the-ice experiences that he got while going on those great runs with the Blackhawks, Jimmy Buffett concerts that he got to open up for. It was just really special. And I think, again, just goes to show how much love is on both sides of this relationship with us Blackhawks fans and Patrick Kane. Not only the greatest American-born player, but I think he's probably the most influential American player of all time. One of the most influential hockey players in general in the modern era. I mean, how many players do we hear in the NHL draft? Anyone who's under 6'1" basically says they model their game after Patrick Kane. So it was just a real special day and a real cool opportunity to meet my childhood hero and go and shake hands with Kaner and say thank you for everything that he did for me, for us, for the city of Chicago, for the Blackhawks organization. It was awesome. And looking forward to celebrating August 8th, Patrick Kane Day once again next year. Super, super cool. Super fortunate to be able to have this opportunity. So once again, thank you to my boy Knuth for taking me along. But I just kind of wanted to share a little bit about that opportunity on Friday. Posted the pictures of Patrick Kane and the videos of him walking up and me shaking hands with him in the picture. I was a little bit starstruck, quite honestly. And I've, met a lot of hockey players, interviewed a lot of them, met a lot of professional golfers as well. That smile that I had in that picture, I look back on it and I'm like, boy, you look really dumb. And I think it's just because I didn't really know what to do with myself at that point in time. But yeah, Patrick Kane, my childhood hero, Chicago Blackhawks icon, now a part of Chicago history forever. 8-8 will always go down as Patrick Kane Day here in the city of Chicago. But that's going to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks, everyone. Again, thank you all for joining me on another episode. Make sure to follow the show for free wherever you may be listening to your podcast. Subscribe on YouTube if you haven't done so already. That way you don't miss out on any of the latest episodes. Until the next one, Blackhawks fans, enjoy the rest of your Tuesdays. I'll see you next time on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.